And we're live. Hey, everybody. I did it again. That was an annoying thing I did during a editing session. I wave and then I slap my hand on my thigh or my knee and it just makes a big sound and I'm talking, so I can't edit it out. That's a good start. Welcome. It's Friday Night Live. This is the second one for February, so this is pretty fun. I am supplied this evening with port. Yes, some excellent port that I'll have sip by sip because it's already like made me flush. Friday night, what else are you gonna do? It's cocktail hour. All right, so this is our second double tag this week. This is so exciting. I did a double tag video that dropped Wednesday, and I've got 2 more tags for you today because I just want to do them, but don't have time to work them into that crazy sticky note schedule that I have. So lives it is. The first one, so there's 2, one is old, one is new. The first one will be the A to J book tag, originated by Jim Holroyd in the last month. And the second one will be the presidential tag because Monday is President's Day. So I thought that was thematic, even though the tag itself is like a year old or something. I saw that and I wasn't tagged in it, but it seemed appropriate. So A to J from Jim. And I will just give a reminder that it's February. Lots going on this month, as always, but next month I have March of the Moderns going on, and I will put that in the banners. There we go. There's a sign up, there's a bingo board with the prompts, and it's basically getting people to read early 20th century literature and have fun. Hopefully you have some of these moldering away on your bookshelves, and so this will help you read them and then decide if you want to keep them or not, but just not have them looking over your shoulder and making you feel guilty, because that's not what we like. So cool. Yeah, so those are reminders. March of the Modern signups. If you go to this blog post, that bit.ly link, it's my blog, which has the link to the bingo board, the Google Doc sign up where all the people are listing their channels and books that they want to read together, as well as the prize, which is a Persephone book, and the idea in case you wanted more specifics about it. So that's all the fun that we have planned. Okay, A to J. Here we go. I have the questions. A, and there's a poltergeist. There's something knocking on a door or a wall. That's just great. That's just what I need. Okay, we're going to ignore that. It's a snowstorm. It must be the snow. A is for author. Which author have you read the most books by? Okay, so I prearranged some books here for props. I didn't know the answer to this right off the top of my head. I thought that Jim might have provided, hopefully, some guidance as to where to find this, because I can't figure out how to find this statistically on Goodreads. But then I was like, no, I know who has written the most books that I've loved. Anyone else a Jacqueline Winspear fan? I love Maisie Dobbs. So this is the closest book I had, and it's a signed first edition. So Jacqueline Winspear lives in California and writes this mystery series about a woman detective in the 1920s, 30s, 40s so far, and I think she's written 16 and is about to come out with the 17th this summer or spring, and I love them all. They're great. So I've probably read the most of Jacqueline Winspear. She's fab. B is for Black History Month. What are you reading for Black History Month? So glad you asked, Jim. So it's been a much slower month than January. January I was speeding through books, and February they're a bit denser and they're taking a bit more time. So you won't be surprised to hear that my speed of 20 books in January has slowed down a bit. And I really enjoyed reading this classic, The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. We'll say Du Bois, and if anyone wants to come fight me to say Du Bois, we'll meet you in the schoolyard. But yeah, so I went through some of the quotes from the first third that I had read the last time, and I thought I would go through the last part of the book since I finished it a couple days ago and had some time to go through the quotes that were most resonant for me. And so I'll read those and see if people have reactions. Duncan. Duncan answering my plea for convenience sake. Goodreads disabled the most read authors section a while back, and a lot of people were annoyed. Yeah, I can imagine. Nice to see you, Duncan. Thanks for being here. So let's see. I have page 92 is the first one. All right, so The Souls of Black Folk is a book that I thought would be more focused on soul of a people, more like mushy stuff, but it actually turned out to be very sociological. I did not know that was Dubois's background. So that was neat to discover. So this first quote is a section. And I was going to look up a couple things, but maybe people can help me out with those answers. He, in the same way that people do Teach for America right after school, if they're service-minded, Du Bois went to a rural area to teach in the South right after he got his doctorate and went on to do other things and then came back like a decade later to see how people were faring and say hello to people. But the place was very changed. So this is his description in Georgia. He's talking about Georgia. The whole land seems forlorn and forsaken. Here are the remnants of the vast plantations of the Sheldons, the Pellets, and the Rensons, but the souls of them are past. The houses lie in half ruin or have wholly disappeared. The fences have flown, and the families are wandering in the world. Strange vicissitudes have met these Hilum masters. Yonder stretch the wide acres of Bildad Reeser. He died in wartime, but the upstart overseer hastened to wed the widow. Then he went, and his neighbors too, and now only the black tenant remains. But the shadow hand of the master's grandnephew, or cousin, or creditor stretches out of the gray distance to collect the rack rent remorselessly, and so the land is uncared for and poor. Only black tenants can stand such a system, and they only because they must. So, first Du Bois of the evening, touching on themes of power structures and rent. Again, it brings me back to Henry George and the land tax. I keep signs keep pointing me to check this out, and I keep going, yeah, later, economics is hazy. But yes, I was going to look up rack rent because I've heard that term before, but I'm not sure what it means other than landlords who collect rent without doing anything to keep up the property. I can take that down, sorry. There we go. 98. So this one is about, the debt ladder. So this was written in 1903, for those who don't know. And what's surprising but not shocking is that so many of things are still true 120 years later. So yeah, grain of salt. A pall of debt hangs over the beautiful land. The merchants are in debt to the wholesalers. The planters are in debt to the merchants. The tenants owe the planters, and laborers bow and bend beneath the burden of it all. And there's more that's like personal stuff. But I liked that interesting pulling together of the debt ladder, is what I said in my notes. It says a lot of the same themes as I came across in the book on populism that Kim is going to read sometime soon from Middle of the Book March. But basically, like, this cycle is perpetuated of debt, so the people who have the power and have the accumulated wealth maintain it, and it's very hard for anyone to change their slot in this caste system. So 1903, He already knew about it. Let's see. 110. Okay, leisure class. So I started but did not finish because it was too annoying. A book called The Theory of the Leisure Class by a famous German sounding name. I'm blanking on it. It's over there. It's right over there. But maybe someone can put it in the comments. But here he says, among this people, still in Georgia here, among this people there is no leisure class. We often forget that in the United States, over half the youth and adults are not in the world earning incomes, but are making homes, learning of the world, or resting after the heat of the strife. But here, 96% are toiling. No one with leisure to turn the bare and cheerless cabin into a home. No old folks to sit beside the fire and hand down traditions of the past. Little of careless, happy childhood and dreaming youth. The dull monotony of daily toil is broken only by the gaiety of the thoughtless and the Saturday trip to town. The toil, like all farm toil, is monotonous, and here there are little machinery and few tools to relieve its burdensome drudgery. But with all this, it is work in the pure open air, and this is something in a day when fresh air is scarce. So to think about that, the way society is organized and how like subcultures, oh, Marilyn Maya's here, how subcultures are carrying each their own statistics. So if you look at American culture as a whole, you have some people who are students, some people who are in retirement, some people who are living the easy life. And then you have this subculture, this poor Black rural county in Georgia that he's speaking of that has none of that. 96% of the people are toiling, physical labor in the field. So just to have like the reality different from one part of the population to another. Ring any bells? Oh, 1:30. I've got about 6 of these, so not too long. Black History Month is giving us a lot of room for thought on BookTube, I hope. Oh, okay. So this quote was about political scandals after war. And this I hadn't thought about before, but it seems like an interesting takeoff point for discussion. So he's talking about expectations for Black people after the Emancipation Proclamation set them free and what wasn't done for people who had a wrong done against them and what should have been done, but about some of the why behind it. Meantime, new thoughts came to the nation. The inevitable period of moral retrogression and political trickery that ever follows in the wake of war overtook us. So flagrant became the political scandals that reputable men began to leave politics alone, and politics consequently became disreputable. Men began to pride themselves on having nothing to do with their own government. Sound familiar? And to agree tacitly with those who regarded public office as a private perquisite. In this state of mind, it became easy to wink at the suppression of the Negro vote in the South and to advise self-respecting Negroes to leave politics entirely alone. The decent and reputable citizens of the North who neglected their own civic duties grew hilarious, and I'm not sure about the use of hilarious here, grew hilarious over the exaggerated importance with which the Negro regarded the franchise. Thus, it easily happened that more and more the better class of Negroes followed the advice from abroad and the pressure from home and took no further interest in politics, leaving to the careless and the venal of their race the exercise of their rights as voters. The Black vote that still remained was not trained and educated, but further debauched by open and unblushing bribery or force and fraud until the Negro voter was thoroughly inoculated with the idea that politics was a method of private gain by disreputable means. Yeah. Disillusionment with politics. Yeah. These are the parts of the souls of Black folk, if you just came in, that hit me with particular weight during my first read of this Black History classic, which only happened this month. This one was about schools. Oh, and this is more to the point that I was talking about, that what should have been done after the emancipation. What in the name of reason does this nation expect of a people, poorly trained and hard-pressed in severe economic competition, without political rights, and with ludicrously inadequate common school facilities? What can it expect but crime and listlessness, offset here and there by the dogged struggles of the fortunate and more determined, who are themselves buoyed by the hope that in due time the country will come to its senses? I thought that one was great. Well, we're still waiting, right? 138. Two more, and then I'll get back to the tag, but these are just so good. All right, so 138, the almsgiving. Oh, and this here, Marilyn Maya, I must get this book. I got it used, as you can tell. It's a very old copy, so you might find this at used bookstore. So hopefully, or at the library. I know you do a lot of library hauls. This quote I thought might touch themes of Anand Giridhas's work. If any of you guys are fans of him, I've listened to several of his talks, but also follow him on Twitter. There's a little blowback on some of his stuff. His latest book is called Winner Take All, if any of you have heard of that one. And his themes are also touched on in Tara Henley's book Lean Out, which I just read and really, really appreciated. So yeah, this is the swirl of February and Black History Month. Like every book I read has like a little grain that sort of reaches out and touches something else and like pulls the knot tighter. This is what is so great about reading like, books thematically. So, okay, so this one is about almsgiving. He's talking about white people in the South being very quick to give alms to Black people, but how that is not the same as regarding others as equals. And yet this does not touch the kernel of the problem. Human advancement is not a mere question of almsgiving, but rather of sympathy and cooperation among classes who would scorn charity. And here is a land where in the higher walks of life, in the higher striving for the good and noble and true, the color line comes to separate natural friends and co-workers, while at the bottom of the social group, in the saloon, the gambling hell, and the brothel, that same line wavers and disappears. And this one the beginning, as I said, touches on Anand Giridhas's work, but the end I am unfamiliar with the data on, in terms of were people Black and white associating in the gambling hills and the brothels and the saloons. I thought that they would have been segregated in 1903 as well. So if anyone has experience with that or knows the data on that, let me know in the comments. All right, final quote from The Souls of Black Folk, 150, is about the deception defense. And this struck me because this is something that is sometimes leveled against women in terms of inequality. And I'm just taking the end of his argument. He builds it up like a very good case, but this is the end, which I thought was still very eloquent. Deception is the natural defense of the weak against the strong, and the South used it for many years against its conquerors. Today, it must be prepared to see its Black proletariat turn that same two-edged weapon against itself. And how natural this is! The death of Denmark Vesey and Nat Turner proved long since to the Negro that present hopelessness of physical defense. And political defense is becoming less and less available, and economic defense is still only partially effective. But there is a patent defense at hand, the defense of deception and flattery, of cajoling and lying. It is the same defense which peasants of the Middle Age used and which left its stamp on their character for centuries. Today, the young Negro of the South who would succeed cannot be frank and outspoken, honest and self-assertive, but rather he is daily tempted to be silent and wary, politic and sly. He must flatter and be pleasant, endure petty insults with a smile, shut his eyes to wrong. In too many cases, he sees positive personal advantage in deception and lying. His real thoughts, his real aspirations must be guarded in whispers. He must not criticize, he must not complain. Patience, humility, and adroitness must, in these growing Black youth, replace impulse, manliness, and courage. The price of culture is a lie. Yeah. So there is a lot to like unpack in the main part of the book. He ends with a lot of shorter chapters about sort of random other more emotional things, but the sociological work was stellar. So I was really enjoying that as my first real Black History Month read this month. So woohoo! Okay. If you want to tell me what you're reading for Black History Month, put it in the comments. That'd be great. Moving on with the tag. What is C for? C. What are you currently reading? Currently reading The Invisible Man. I just started because I just finished the other read. And Survival Math, picking that up for my Patreon book club. So that is on the list. What else? So those are the physical books. I'm reading the ebook of Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, which is science fiction fantasy, and I'm buddy reading that with Will from Ilum Reads, and it's super fun. I am reading audiobook from Libro.fm, Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I'm reading it slowly because I'm not walking anywhere. We have a snowstorm at the moment, so the past couple days I've been going around doing errands and stuff. The first chapter is super slow. Like the last 20 minutes was the payoff for like an hour and 40-minute chapter. So I'm finding it hard to push through the next ones. Yeah, so those are the 4 current reads. D is for drink of choice while reading. And while I may have port this evening in a pretty cut glass that I just picked up from my family. Usually it's tea. So definitely tea. I actually finished a book today and I looked up and was like, oh, shoot, tea went cold again. Book reader problems, right? I need to move this over so I don't keep cutting off my questions. Let's see. Current reads, drink of choice. 5, ebook or physical. Definitely physical. I don't like reading ebooks. Number 6, favorite fictitious character. Okay, and Jim here said fictitious rather than fictional. So I am going to adhere to the letter of this question rather than the spirit of the question, because fictitious means like a fictitious business name. It means like a lie or a deception in real life rather than in fiction in the pages of a book. So what I thought of as a fictitious character, my favorite, and it's bad, right? Because usually a fictitious character would be like an alter ego or like a criminal persona. But I chose my favorite is as Luther, Obama's anger translator. Does anyone know about Luther? He's played by Keegan-Michael Key, the comedian, and he's hilarious. So I had to revisit some of the videos to like remember, because he was one of the first fictitious characters I could think of, and I was like, yes, yeah, definitely, it's good. Cool. Rachel stopping by to say hi. Hi, Rachel. And then Marilyn Maya putting, she's reading Passing by Nella Larson and Red Dust Road by Jackie Kay. Both deal with cultural identity and racial identity. Excellent. So I read Passing in December. That was a really good book. And Red Dust Road, I don't think I have seen. It doesn't pop a cover to my mind. So very cool. All right, A to J, we're on G. Famous Georgians that you know. And all I know is Stalin. I mean, that's the only one I can think of. Sorry. H, a horror book that really scared you. And I don't read horror. And so I was hard pressed to find a book. I mean, I could have looked up like my book on fascism, but I'm going to say Nineveh. I think this is a book that I actually bought and just unhauled recently because I'm like, I'm never going to read this. It's by Henrietta Rose Innes, and I think it's about cockroaches taking over a dystopian world or something like this, like a mix between the Metamorphosis and a dystopia place in South Africa. I don't know. It just sounded so, I was so impressed with her as an author. She came to the bookstore where I was working, and I wanted to get something of hers, but the only books that she signed and left behind were this thing called Nineveh, and I was like, okay, in my more open, literary-minded times, and I just would look at it and be like, I don't know that I want to read about cockroaches. So it is no longer here because in the end it was too horrifying for me to contemplate. Marilyn Maya saying she's drinking tea right now as well, and it's only the afternoon. Tea maniac. Me too, usually. Yes, so if you're in Hawaii, you're like 5 hours ahead of me, I think. Or behind me. Anyway, however you say it. Yes, afternoon for you. Afternoon for me too. I'm just calling these Friday nights because most of the people I think that watch are east of us. So, and we have Britain on a budget. Hello, everyone. Yikes. I think that's about the cockroaches. Yeah, thank you. Horrifying. So that was H-I. Jim couldn't think of an I, so he left us to our own devices. Silly man. What I came up with for I was island. And for some reason, I like islands. Call me an Anglophile for a reason. And when I look at my TBR on Storygraph, I look up island and 9 books come up to be read. Island Years, Island Farm, Island Magic by Elizabeth Googe, who is a March of the Modern possibility. And I'm not sure how to say her name, but that's how Kate Howe said it. So I'm going to go with how Kate says it. Island Twilight by Nigel Tranter, Napoleon's Last Island, Notes from a Small Island, Island of the Man by Laurie R. King, which I've read, which I haven't read. No Man is an Island by Thomas Merton, Stevenson's Paris, Bohemian Days Before Treasure Island, and An Old Woman's Reflections, The Life of a Blasket Island Storyteller by Peg Sayers. So, yeah, apparently I like islands and books about islands. So that's my I prompt. Plug that back in. And then finally, J, a just finished book. And I just finished this today, like a little over an hour ago. This is The First Emma by Camille DeMaio. This is historical fiction based on an actual true story of a murder of a brewer in Texas, in San Antonio, Texas. And the murder was committed by his mistress, who was named Emma, in the presence of his other mistress, named Emma, across town from his wife, who was named Emma. So, yeah, this is a crazy story, right? And the author is someone like a friend of a friend of a friend. She's going to be coming on March 7th at 4 p.m. Pacific to talk about themes in historical literature of the 1900 to 1945 time frame, which is super exciting. So I'm excited to talk to Camille about both her book and the period in general. And just a reminder, banner. Buddy reading in March. That's the link to go to my blog that you'll find the details for March of the Moderns. So I'll leave that up there. So there we go. That was my A to J. That took a lot of books and explanation. So I hope you liked it. Now for an interlude. The interlude is, what are you reading for February? What is new in your BookTube life? Do you have a sea shanty request for next week? I'm taking requests. Yeah, I'm doing these Friday night lives in February as an experiment. They're pretty fun so far. This is just the second one. Getting ready for March of the Moderns. I don't know if I'll do these on Fridays in March because I'll be having probably like extra lives strewn about, as it were, with people doing buddy reads. So, and again, that link is for signing up to buddy reads modern classics with people during the month of March. So you can choose a short one. You can choose a long one that's a mystery and have it be a mammoth and a mystery and a modern. And then you're doing 3 readathons at once. And that is the magic of BookTube. Yes. Oh, and I need to tag people. Okay, that was the last bit. I'm going to tag for the A to J tag Steph at Coffee Over Apples, Karen Evans, who has a self-named channel like I do, and JD Estrada. So those three folks, I hope they haven't done it yet. And there we go. And on to tag number 2. And it's 4:30 exactly. Oh my gosh, I am working it. All right, so the second tag is the presidential tag. Now, I was not tagged in this one, but it is by Steve Donoghue. It was done by Heidi at My Reading Life and Brian at Bookish, and I saw both of their videos, and I thought it was really interesting, so I put down on my list of, if you get bored someday, and it's President's Day on Monday, so this seemed like a good time. So I'll go through this. There's questions that are pretty funny, so you get a little bit of a feel for Steve Donoghue's humor with these. Okay, so the presidential tag, everyone ready? George Washington. What's the first book you remember reading all by yourself with no help from anybody? And I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I don't know how soon I was reading. I don't remember like picture books, except that they were there when I was older. So the first book I remember reading is A Wrinkle in Time, my Madeleine L'Engle book. I read through the series, and I really loved Madeleine L'Engle. So her A Wrinkle in Time, A Wind in the Door, A Swiftly Tilting Planet, Many Waters. There's like one more in that series that I can't remember, but I really liked the Murrays and their life from the 40s and their characters and stuff. So that is the first book I remember. Number 2, John Adams. What book comes to mind that's short but disproportionately powerful? Okay. Sit down, John, if anyone remembers that. Here are the books for this. So Eve Ewing is a poet, and she has this collection called 1919. I got it not that long ago, and it may be another one that I need to like read through twice. 1919 in July. It's talking about like moments in the Chicago race riots of 1919, and poems. So like really just tiny little scintillating snatches of emotion and pathos from that history. So Black History Month rears its head again, and short but powerful. That's poetry. 3 Jefferson. Oh, we got Marilyn Maya. Oh, Jackie Chi is a biracial queer Scottish poet. This is her memoir. She was adopted and raised in a Scottish family. Oh, The Red Dust Road. Oh, okay. Wow. Very cool. I'm following Bruce Frumy, and he does these fabulous Scottish history talks, and he does highlight a lot of unthought of Scottish history, including the stuff that involves America and the slave trade and like the not so nice stuff that all the white power people don't want to talk about. So he's really good. I'd recommend his channel. I think it's called Scotland History Tours. But yeah, Jackie K. Okay, yeah, Jackie K. Sorry. Yeah, thanks. I will put her down on my TBR and Storygraph so that I don't forget. So we're on Thomas Jefferson. Tell us about a book you like that's written by a very bad person. Okay. So this was a hard one, and I don't have a physical book because I wouldn't keep it. I would probably say Ender's Game. I think of that as a really good book in terms of the lessons and the characterization and the pacing and the tension, but learning things about Orson Scott Card, who is a Mormon with disturbing views about homosexuality, and I don't know if is he still alive? I don't know, but he's had bad things to say, and so that was one of my, well, I don't have to go through that whole series. I read that for a class in high school, actually, and it was good, but don't need to support authors like that. Number 4. Oh, we skip. Theodore Roosevelt. Name a book that has more energy than you do. Nice. Okay, so more energy than you do. I said, I didn't look it up. The title of Felicia Day's book. Shoot. Does anyone know? It's an audiobook that I listened to. Felicia Day is known for a web series and doing her own creative gaming stuff, and I can't remember what else. But basically, she's forged her own creative path, and people have given her a lot of props for that. And so she recently did like a how to be creative in your life kind of book, and she puts a lot of humor in it. She narrates it herself. She's got a great speaking voice. So I really enjoyed that. And it was like perking me up every time I listened to it. So that was great. Number 5, Franklin Roosevelt. Is there a book that fundamentally changed your conception of reading? What did I put for this? Oh, yes. It's one of my favorites. Okay, so Kate Wilhelm. Again, this is like an older book. Margaret and I. Kate Wilhelm is a science fiction writer, but this is more of a sort of like supernatural consciousness science fiction. It's science fiction in the way that like dystopian stuff is science fiction. Like it's so close that you kind of think it's not really science-y. So there's issues about unequal relationships and independence and sort of being part of a larger energy or community in here that really resonated with me. And so it's one of those books you think about long afterwards and like sort of want to be true. And so yeah, can change your life if you let it. So I like that one. Number 6, John Kennedy. What's the most glamorous it book you've ever read? Well, read. Shoot. Okay. Well, I was going to say I almost never get books when they're new. So this is if I'm getting an it book, it's like 2 years after it's released. So no one thinks it's an it book anymore. But I had the chance when I was a bookseller right before the bookstore closed to go to a book fair, a regional bookselling fair. And this is the type of fair where they give books out because they think people will recommend them and be good ambassadors. And I was all for that. So I got copies of Underland and Recollections of My Non-Existence. And these are really it books. Like they're super, super hyped and everything in the industry. And I haven't read this one yet. I'm a big Rebecca Solnit fan. Especially her book Wanderlust, but I haven't read it yet. I think it's because of the cover. Like it doesn't really interest me. I don't know why they went with this based on her oeuvre. But this cover, yes. So Robert McFarlane is one of my favorite authors. He wrote The Old Ways, which is one of my favorite books. And this is a little bit more scattered thematically. It's his time spent underground for various scientific pursuits, and then bringing it together in terms of like philosophically as humans, what is our relationship to the underworld? Really, really cool. But that was a very talked about book already, so an it book. Number 7 is Gerald Ford. Have you ever read a placeholder book? Something that only served to get you from one book to another. This is terrible. So a placeholder book, I was going to say ain't nobody got time for that. But the one that actually comes to mind was one that I picked up out of the garage, Maintaining the Spirit of a Place or of Place. I love reading about Spirit of Place. If you guys have ever read Winifred Gallagher, she is a, essay writer about kind of like sociology of the home or the environment. She has a really interesting way of talking about how we grow up around spaces and how they affect our moods and our interaction with others. So anyway, this is a book that talks about Spirit of Place in terms of like a whole town. And it's kind of like a community action network formula for challenging stuff at the city level. So no guesses where I got that. I think my mom's probably watching. So that came out of the declutter of the garage where my parents have their books from my mom's life and politics, etc. So placeholder, I'm reading that before bed. It's a lot of like not very specific stuff. So not very helpful, but I guess I'm letting it sink down and see if it comes into play later. Question number 8. Bill Clinton, a reading experience you loved despite how utterly sinful it was. So, I mean, this is kind of like the other tag I did where I was asking about a guilty pleasure, and it's like, I don't do guilt anymore. I don't do sin. So, taking the spirit of this one rather than the letter, I would say sometimes you just need to laugh at the awkwardness and be rescued. So, for this one, I have a guilty pleasure read. Cheryl and Kenyon, Fantasy Lover. So it's like a steamy romance about a Greek god that comes to life from a book. I mean, made to order, right? So, number 9, George W. Bush. What's the most harmful book you've ever read? And the fact that that's the harmful president means that this book tag is old, obviously. The most harmful book that I've ever read. I don't have it again, but I think his name is Harold Bloom, not like the Orlando we all love, but Closing of the American Mind. I think I read this for a political philosophy class in college and thought, oh wow, this is so insightful and meaningful, and then later learned about the bias inherent in that and went, oh yeah, maybe not so mainstream, but more white mainstream. So I'm still working that out, open to discussion on that one, but a more critical lens of that sort of viewpoint. All right, and then number 10 for the presidential tag. Barack Obama, what's the last great book you read, flaws and all? And so I would say December, To Speak for the Trees by Diana Beresford Kroger. I've read good books since then, but in terms of a great book that really felt like, your esprit spirit opened, I really like how she approached science advocacy and her personal story and wove in the background on folklore with policy work and discrimination with groups in Canada, and she had a really neat way of weaving it all together. And then she went through the Ogham alphabet, so I mean, who doesn't love that? It's the first time I've heard someone talk about it, so I was like, yes. So that was the presidential tag. Double tag, double time, and I would like to tag Sandy Golston, my other AuthorTube friend, Courtney Ferreter, unless she's already done this. I didn't see that she did this, but it started like in her circle, so if she has, sorry for not noticing. And Book Whimsy, who is Cynthia at Book Whimsy. So I think that you could come up with great answers for these, and you are hereby tagged with snowballs if I could step outside without freezing my toots off. So, yeah, that's what I have for you today. I have lots of books around me, and I still have a mostly full glass of port. I didn't want to get too flushed because it goes straight to my cheeks when I take a sip. So let me know what everyone else is reading, or if you're planning on participating in March, or what the weather is like outside your door. So I'm in Portland, and it's been snowing since yesterday afternoon, and it's quite lovely, and I haven't gotten out today. So we'll see how long it continues to be lovely, but I sent the forecast screenshot to a friend in Boston, and she wrote back and said, that's warm. And I was like, well, it's warm to you, but hey, this is a big deal for Portlanders. It's like I'm hearing people Reiner in Stockholm saying they have more snow than they usually get. The Book Leo, her channel, she's talking about snow in the Netherlands, which they never get. So, you know, people are experiencing differences the world over, and it's all valid. So, yeah. Yeah, my book detritus is real. Thanks all for coming. This is I don't know what this one is meant for, but it's so teeny and cute. I thought I'd keep it nearby. Yeah. So the final sign off, this is one of the reminders that I gotta remind myself to put in there, advocate. Patreon book club this month is going to be reading Survival Math, just by Mitchell S. Jackson. He is someone who grew up in Portland, and so he's talking about his growing up in Portland and like things he ran into. That's going to be happening on Sunday, February 21st, right? And I'm very excited for that. I have 2 people in the Patreon book club, so it's going to be a small group, but this is our first book club discussion. So if you want to join in on that, find the book and join in, please do. Oh gosh, Duncan's in Ontario. Today was negative 23 Celsius, but we haven't had as much snow this year. Wow, negative 23 Celsius. Okay, so that's like 32 minus. Okay. Oh God, that, you know. So actually, Tara Henley she's from BC, but she lives in Toronto, has lived in Toronto and moved back. And so she was talking about the cold and the subway and some of the weather in Toronto. And I've never been to Toronto, but having looked at the Great Lakes map recently to find out where something was in Trace and where some like native tribes where their lands were, I was like, oh, Toronto's right there. Like it's on the same piece of land. It's right across the lake. Why did I not know this? Because I grew up in California. Anyway, thank you all for coming and commenting and liking and subscribing and talking to me about your books and your day, and I enjoy all this. So hopefully this is a nice little Friday night chat, and yeah, let me know what you're up to in the future, and I'd love to come by and see what you're working on. All right, I'll see you next Friday. Next Friday is the sea shanty video. That's right. So if you want, I reserve the right to not sing this one, but if you have requests, I may entertain them. So feel free to pop them in the comments. I'm definitely have 5 on my list to sing and a verse of, so I thought it'd be fun to hop on the trend. So anyway, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.